I'm Charlene Maxey-Harris, and I am the oldest daughter of Joanne and Albert Maxey. And my mother was the state senator for Nebraska. She was also on the school board, and she was the president of the school board. She was an activist in church. She was very involved with church, and that's where we got our foundation for being excellent in everything that we do in education. And Sister Bernice here is my second mom, and together they led us to have a strong faith in God.
Yes.
And then through being our Sunday school teachers, and so teaching and education has always been a vital part of our lives. And as a parent, she was very involved with what schools we attended, our teachers, what kind of expectations that they had of us or they didn't have for us. And she became a voice that was very loud, a very clear, very passionate to make a difference, not only for African American students, but all students. So, she was Sunday school director, she was the usher. I think you guys have done everything in the church. And that was Christ Temple Church, Christ Temple Mission Church.
Bernice, do you want to introduce yourself?
I'm Bernice, Onuoha, and I'm the mother of 8 children. 6 graduated from here in high school. I attended Christ Temple Mission and church. I was involved with PTA at Beatty High School and Clara McPhee Elementary School, and was I did programs for them for the Beatty School on 2 times a month actually, and I portrayed different people from Nigeria during different parts, and that was always a fun time to attend the school. They wanted me to do that often or more, but then I decided not to because I had to get Nick and Johnny actually to school, and by the time I got back home, it was time to go back and pick them up from kindergarten. And I walked, I didn't drive, you see, so that was a thing. But I got to a lot of places. Mm-hmm. And working with Joanne was really something. We started out being Sunday school teachers at the same time. Charlene was in the car seat when I met Al and Joanne. She was the first baby. And it was just fun. We just hit it off immediately. And we became best friends. And so many of her positions, I'm a go girl, you can do it. I know you can do it. And I was always there to help encourage her along the way. And we talk nights late. And her last days were just the most beautiful days. I spent time with her until the end. She made us both go home. I never shall forget that day. I'd been there. I usually would get there. My husband went to work at 6:30, and I would go to Joanne's house got there around close to 7. She said, "Now here you are today." I said, "Yes, you have your company one more day." She said, "Girl, when you going to rest?" and things like that. But in the end, we shared so many memories, so many stories, and I said, and look where God brought you from, all the achievements that you stood for, and God has been with you. And it was just a pleasure to be there. The last day, Charlene and I both were there. And she had told me so many things, and I wonder why she told me so many things that day. She said, "This, you do that, and you do that." I said, "Well, gee whiz, you're still giving orders, goodness." And I'd always tell her she's the order giver, and we would all do what she said too. We were with the kids. We had so much in common with her kids and mine. We kind of grew up together, and they knew, as Charlene said, they had to do what was right. We expected the best out of them. We wanted them to achieve to the highest, and we saw so much disquality, I would say, in the school system for children of color, the Native Americans and things. But we decided we could do something about it. But she had the courage. I don't know if you remember, the school, one thing I won't let this go. We had these books, Little Black Sambo and Uncle Tom's Cabin. And some of the kids were in schools were the minority. And as this book was read, and they would just kind of draw up, like, she said, "This thing has to stop." I said, "How are we going to stop it?" She said, "There is a way." And we thought about that long before it happened. But it really took courage and effort when Leola Bullock
Was
and
Mrs. Shanks
and
involved?
Mrs. Shanks. We got on it, and I was at the auditorium. I don't know if it was Lincoln High School, no, Elliott School, and we started just throwing little black Sambo. Well, we had a stack so high, I said, "They're gonna throw us out of here." Oh no, they shouldn't be there. And I thought about it, and I said, "Here I am, I'm following, but we're gonna throw them out." So we threw books for the longest. It was something. It was just amazing. But she wanted equality for all children. It wasn't mainly just black children, but all children mattered to Joanne.
Right. Do you remember what year it was?
It was in the 60s, I think.
In the 60s.
But I'm not quite sure what exact year when we threw the books and things away. But it was...
And they changed that policy.
They
then,
changed
right?
it completely.
Wonderful.
They did. And the problem with Little Black Sambo were the stereotypes.
Yes.
It was the
Yeah.
stereotypes. All
And
you could do
the
was
kids, they standing with
yeah.
big eyes, and they'd all look at, maybe it was 3 black children in the corner, and then everybody would turn and they said, "Little Black Sambo." Well, the kids didn't know any better. This is what they were taught too. But they would all eyes would turn to the black children. And it was
Right.
something.
Wonderful. Now, was Joanne's first thing the school board?
Mm-hmm.
Right. She
Yes.
ran for
Right,
school board
right,
first.
Right, and she was
Okay.
involved with the League of Women Voters too.
Voters.
Okay,
Mhm,
great.
mhm.
And do you remember anything about her campaign? Bernice, do you remember about her campaign and what it was like?
It was great. We had a plan. We had flyers everywhere and people at different parts of the town, and I didn't drive, but I walked a lot of places, and we had flyers everywhere, and we had meetings weekly, sometimes twice a week, and we had goals set, and we met those goals, and we went. Some of us drove, some walked, and we just handed out plaques and everything from one side of town to the other. So it was like a door-to-door campaign.
Yeah.
And
Grassroots.
yes,
Grassroots.
we talked to each other personally, to people, and said that she was our best choice. So she worked hard.
And she won really big.
She
didn't
did.
She did.
She did, and that was in 1975.
In 1975.
Mm-hmm.
Good.
She really did.
And so she spent her time, and that's what I remember, the meetings, right? And making sure that we were doing what we needed to do in the classroom. And yes, we were one or the only student of color in the classroom, or one of very few, but it was usually just by ourselves in the classroom. And they gave us the confidence to say, we can do it. We're just as good as everyone in that class, if not better.
Oh, yeah.
That's right, and color doesn't matter. I said, if you have it up here, they can't take it away from you. So study. You can maintain and do what everyone else does. That's what I told my kids. Don't come in and tell me what you can't do. Oh no. There's no certain thing as you can't. You can do it, and we focused that into all our kids.
Yes.
And they did it.
So when she served on the school board, do you remember anything specific or things that came up or?
Well, let me think. I know one thing that was very special. I am the oldest, and there's 3 other siblings. I have a sister, Michelle, and then I have 2 brothers, Albert and Aaron, in that order. And it was very, very special for her to give us our diplomas.
Oh, yes.
It was just like, wow.
Wow,
For her to
remember
be
that.
on that stage and for her to give us that was just amazing. And it just really validated our walk, our journey. I'm sure the teachers probably acted a little different since we were in the classroom, but it was good. I mean, she pushed us. And I know that I remember when my youngest brother, when my mom she was appointed then to serve as state legislature later by Senator Governor James Exon. And that was quite the honor. And I remember my brother being there as she signed her oath. And, it was nothing but very, very proud memories of her being in that spot. And it was just like, wow. I remember the rainbow
Yes.
campaign with Jesse Jackson, and he actually came to the house.
Yep.
And with the
forgot him.
campaign group, And it was just wonderful.
And we had a
to
parade,
watch.
like we walked from Malone Center down to the Capitol.
For Jesse Jackson.
And Martin Luther King.
And Martin Luther King
King.
also.
Yes.
Malone Center we were very active
Yes.
with Malone Center activities and meetings and events.
Ooh.
We had
So
talent
many
shows.
of them. Talent shows, sleep-ins.
Yes, sleep-ins.
Oh, it was fun. And those women too took an extra interest in, I'm joining them with Destineers and
Share
Me's and Destineers
Destineers.
Club. That was a big thing.
And that was a group of high school students. They
What were the
both
names again?
Share Me's and
And
Destineers.
Okay.
And what it was a women's group and a young men's group. And it was like a cotillion. And they
It
just
was something
groomed
patterned
us.
after the one in Omaha. They had a large one in Omaha, Nebraska. And our kids, the girls all presented and they wore white gowns. And it was just beautiful. And they knew that they had to be somebody in it. And they had to study. We didn't pick out anyone just, it was girls that we kind of just trained up and watched them grow and blossom. And it was just the most beautiful sight. And we had that once a year. It was awesome.
So, and it was, how many couples were involved? They were both African American, white, just all over.
All over. It wasn't any certain.
Judge Urban and his wife were involved,
Mhm.
and who were some of the other people?
What was his name? The president of Westland.
Vance Rogers.
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 Yeah, Rogers. Yeah, he was involved in it. Oh, it was just awesome. And Mr. Simon helped out, and Simon. It was just a lot of, and it was just a proud moment. The house was usually filled. The auditorium where we had it was just, Conhusker one year, it was beautiful. They all walked on stage. It was exciting. It was just the most beautiful evening.
And I remember them being mentors for
Yes.
these young people, and that they would be grooming them for the world and the society and to go into education. Most of them went on to education.
Yeah,
Graduated and became teachers. Some of them. Thomas Christie was in there.
My daughter Alice.
Alice
became a
Bowling
teacher.
and
Charles Bowling was a teacher,
Bowling.
music teacher.
Was Marilyn Farr in that?
Yes, she was.
Marilyn
Farr.
Farr.
She's now president, one of the head people at Doane College.
At Doane College, that's right.
Yeah.
There were quite a few people, quite a few teachers in that period, and the young people were involved, and I was too young, so I was always like, oh, why didn't I get to be involved? So, but I was just young enough that I got to see them.
You got to see it all. You got to witness.
Yes, I couldn't go to the cotillion and the balls, but I heard that she showed them how to walk.
Oh, yeah.
And they would have books on. We had to practice with books on our head so that we could walk like
Straight.
models. Yes.
And shoulders back.
Shoulders back. And my mom grew up in Indianapolis, Indiana. My mom and my dad. And so they came from a rich community of African American leaders and social workers. They were professionals in their community. It was a divided community. But when they came here, it
wasn't the same.
It wasn't the same. And so they had to build that community through their churches, through the community
Malone
centers.
Center and all. It was a big help.
Bernice, when did you come to Lincoln?
May the 4th, 1959.
She remembers
What
it.
brought you to Lincoln?
Oh, my first husband was in the Air Force, and we moved here. And so we stayed. We divorced, and I ended up with 5 children alone. But I made it. God was in the plan. We worked hard, and I instilled in them that they could still be somebody, no matter if your dad was gone. God is still on the throne, honey. You can do it. And it was hard sometimes, but I look back, and I think how far God has brought us from. We were never hungry. We always had a place to live, and none of those things that happen to so many mothers like they happen today. We made it, and I thank God for that. And then He gave me one of the best husbands in the world. And so we celebrated our 47th anniversary last Monday, a week ago. 47 years. So God is a good God.
Was there a lot of segregation when you first came to Lincoln?
Yes, I had gone to nursing school and came here, and put in an application for a job.
And she's from Texas.
I'm from Texas. And they offered me a housekeeping job. And I said, I beg your pardon? This is not what I'm applying for. Well, he didn't have anything available. I said, okay, I was crushed. And then I went to a store. They had Kresge's downtown in Lincoln. Applied for a job. They gave you a quick little test for 20 minutes, they said. I think I finished it in about 7 minutes. And there was another lady, a Caucasian lady, didn't write like Charlene and I. It took her the whole 30 minutes to finish the test. And they told me they would call me back. And I could see the answers. And so he said, well, did you see the answers? What answers? I said, I could see the answer where she said it. I finished first, remember? So he said, I'll call you. And I went back to Kresge's about a week and a half later. That same lady was working behind the counter. She missed 3 or 4 of the questions. So I said, boy, coming from the South to Midwest, I can't see the difference. In fact, you knew where you stood in the South, but in Midwest was different. So it was very different, and I was very crushed about it. And I said, I didn't miss the 1. She missed 3, and she got the job. You know, it was just small things like that. So I found it Nebraska to be subtle with the segregation. You know, you think it's okay, but deep down within, it's a different feeling.
What did you then get as a job?
I went on to school. I worked at the hospital at Lincoln General for about 12 years. That's where Joanne worked in the lab and I worked in the ER. Yeah. So
and then Mom tried to work. She worked at the department store too.
Mm-hmm. At Ben Simons.
Ben Simons.
And I worked at Mill and Payne.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
But then eventually you did work in the hospitals.
Yes, I did.
So was it getting better then? When
was it better, but they would more or less say, well, do you want to work this floor? I said, no, I was pointed to that floor. And they did that for quite a spell. So I said, heck with it. But I did it. You know, I just worked then because I had the children. I had to.
Right.
But later I did.
So it did get better.
It got better.
Over time.
Over time. It took quite some time to get
Mm-hmm.
better. In fact, it was about 15 years, actually.
And then it did get better.
It got better.
Yeah. Do you think that now what would you say to young people today? What would be, like, one of the messages that we're using with this film is to inspire, not only educate, but inspire young people, young women. What would you say to young women today?
Whatever your goal in mind is, stick to it. You can do it. You can accomplish if you try. Don't give up. Hold on. You can make it. There's a higher power, you know, and I always teach young women, hold on to God. Put Him first in your life, and you can make it, no matter what the crisis is. God will open the way for you. He's your guide. Don't give up. It's so easy to give up. Mm-hmm. And don't let color stop you, no matter what. Keep on. You can make it. Just keep that in mind. No matter what comes against you, you can make it.
And I would add to that, it may be difficult, but it's not impossible.
Nothing is impossible.
And to build relationships that are going to help you with people who care about you. And I mean, right now, they can dream. They can do the things that they want to. And I think the beautiful thing about all of the people who came into Nebraska mm-hmm. was that was an open opportunity. They were willing, but they didn't know what it would cost. You know, the community did not know what it would cost for them to be accepted, for them to continue to thrive. And my dad came here to the University of Nebraska to play basketball. And he came at a time where, again, Indianapolis was a thriving place. They met in Indianapolis. And Nebraska, yeah, they didn't know where Nebraska was.
It was the opposite.
It was the opposite. But his basketball team won their state championship. Now, what's significant about that, there had not been an African-American school that had won a state basketball championship. Mm-hmm. They weren't allowed, really. you know. And they went, and state of Indiana, that's nothing but basketball. But even in their victory, they weren't able to celebrate like all the other teams. And so my dad talks about that it was usually on the court, it was 7 against 5 because the referees were usually for the other team. So that they needed to win at least by 20 points in order for it would not be a conflict. So he's the one that brought her here and so many years ago.
And when did your parents come here?
So he came here in the 1950s, the late 50s, the late 1950s.
And to play for the university.
To play for the university. And then they got married in 1958.
58. Yeah, because they came here. I met her in the end of. I met them in the fall of 58.
And then your father went on to be in the police force, right?
That's right. That's right. He got his art degree here, and then he went on to use his art skills and applied for a job there at the police department and stayed there for 33 years.
33
I should
years.
have him here too. So 33 years, and then he went on and worked for the public schools a little bit longer. And
Longer. That's where it's amazing. We both ended up in our end days at the public school system.
At the public school system. So
That's how we bring about change, right?
That's true.
That's right.
That's true.
That's exactly right. Anything else that you'd like to share about your mom?
I do. I want to talk about the bill that she helped. Actually, it was the sponsor, and it was for helping displaced homemakers. And this was a bill that was needed to help provide resources for women who were divorced or they were widows and had been taking care of their kids their whole life. And then after that divorce, they didn't have any skills to go into the workforce. And so it was one of those, or separation. And so she sponsored this bill, and the bill passed in spite of a veto by Governor Exon at the time. And she gave testimony, went to D.C., she went to China, she went a lot of different places. But she was very, very instrumental in getting that across, and a benefit for women at a time where the world was changing. Women were in the workforce, but then there were some people who went to the workforce and couldn't support themselves. It was very dramatic. So.
And do you remember what the Displaced Homemaker Act did?
Well, it provided, I have to look through and look at all my notes here, but it did provide some services to them. I'll look it up and I'll get back to you.
Yeah, I think it's education and helping them to write resumes and that kind of thing so that women who didn't have those skills could get into the workforce. So, yeah, it was a very important bill.
It was.
A very important bill.
I was thinking of it, but it's been a long time. When you be here 81 years, almost 82. It's a long time.
Great. So, anything else that you would like to say?
I think I think in her latter years she worked for Malone Center, and she worked with the seniors. So that was another area, and that just showed how she cared for everyone. I mean, she was for life and making sure people had quality life. So she organized the
senior
diners and the senior community center there. I think it's still going on now.
Yeah, and it still worked. At Newman Church, they named it after Joanne. We went there at lunch.
Well, and now they have an elementary school named
And
for
they
you.
have. We're very proud of the elementary school as well.
That's so exciting.
It is so exciting. We've got a scholarship that we've been giving out since 1997 to LPS students as well. So we continue to give back.
Well, we really appreciate both of you being here and telling us about Joanne and all the things that you did also, Bernice. It's very important, and we're very pleased that you could join us. Thank you so much.
Thank you for asking me to come.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.